This is one of a series of videotapes featuring Dr. Richard Bandler, the originator and co-founder of neuro-linguistic programming. And sitting here with me is Michael Sajace, who's going to help in narrating these films today. Michael, we certainly have been very fortunate in having Dr. Bandler in this series, and I think a unique experience because though Dr. Bandler appears on a number of videotapes, it's usually with an audience and that kind of thing, and these are studio quality tapes, and it certainly gives us a different purview of him working with one individual in that particular setting.
I want to comment on that a moment, Bill. The fact that this is a studio quality tape, the fact that we've gone to great efforts to emphasize the quality, as well as the fact that these are some of the first tapes you'll ever see with follow-up. We've gone to the fact that when this tape is over, you'll see an 8-month follow-up with the individual that Richard has worked with. I think adds some uniqueness to this tape.
It certainly does, and I think it helps people see that this is not something that was temporary, but something that had a long-lasting value.
Right.
A lot of the people who are watching this videotape may never have heard of neuro-linguistic programming, and that's a mouthful before. If you were having to tell someone very briefly what NLP was, how would you describe it to them?
That's a good question. What I would like to do is emphasize what NLP, for me, the most important things. NLP, in one sense, is a way of modeling other behavior, but unique in the sense that it allows one to begin to understand the structure of internal experience. And what I mean by that is that our experiences are made up of visualizations and auditory experiences and feelings, and NLP is the first model that I know of that has been able to look at the relationship between how we neurologically process information and its effect on our behavior and our feelings.
So the emphasis being on internal experience as opposed to just looking at external experience.
Well, the emphasis of how our internal experience or how we process information affects our external experience and our interaction with other people.
All right.
Specifically, as you watch Richard work with Susan in this tape, he begins to explore, if you will, her internal experiences, her visual images of how she sees herself in these situations that bring on these uncomfortable feelings, as well as how she visualizes the experience.
He does do a great deal of work with her visualization patterns.
Yes, he does.
And they seem different than just saying, do you see something? He does a lot of changing of patterns.
There's a word in NLP we call submodalities. And what that word means is if you take a visual field or take a picture, there's a number of ways you can adjust a picture. You can make it bright or you can make it dark. You can increase its size.
Sort of like you work a television set.
Precisely. It's like having fine-tuning. You know, you can adjust the clarity of the picture. You can adjust the distance of the picture. And as you will notice, as Dr. Bandler begins to ask her questions to elicit information, you'll notice her feeling and her experience begins to change as he adjusts that internal image. And NLP is the only model that I know of that gives you that technology to begin to understand and give you the tool to begin to alter internal experience so rapidly.
So it'd be very helpful, I think, for those viewing the tape to look at the manual, because the manual will be more explicit of the submodalities, as you've called them, so that one might be able to look at the tape and know not only what to look for, but how to find it.
Precisely.
So that would be a valuable asset for them. As people look at this tape, there's certainly a lot of things in the manual that they can look at and utilize, but would there be any other thing that you would particularly want people to be sure as they're viewing this that they ought to be aware of?
I would suggest that people listen for and look for two things specifically as they watch Dr. Bandler work. One is to notice Susan's eye accessing movements and her behavior as she tries to get or elicit the information that Dr. Bandler asks for, but also begin to look at how he systematically elicits information from her to find out what it is that creates the unpleasant experience. It's almost like Richard is wanting to talk about the difference that makes the difference. And what is the difference in this situation that for Susan allows her to not get so upset about an experience?
And then once he understands that, he begins to change what that pattern is, how she goes about that.
That's right. And once he begins to change that internal pattern or experience, the external behavior is subsequently going to change. And we will hopefully see that in the follow-up that we do at the end of the tape.
And now we'll turn to Dr. Richard Bandler as he works with Susan.
Okay, Susan. Now, why don't you tell me what it is that that you would like? See, I don't know. We just got brought here and wired up, and
Right.
So you have to give me a hint.
Okay. I have a problem with a fear that is almost disabling to me at certain times. When I have it sort of go into panic attacks, what I would like to do is distance myself so that when I'm in the situation that I wouldn't experience the fear to the degree that I have it, where I could control myself and make better decisions.
Is the fear appropriate? It's not like it's not like you're afraid of dust under your bed or something like that.
No, it's a fear of loss. It's a fear of losing friendships or close relationships. Even when I anticipate a loss that isn't even real, I get a panic attack.
Then you don't have to worry too much about being... the situation that you're worried about being in is the one of anticipating and thinking about the loss.
Right. I guess, yes.
Do you lose a lot of friends?
No.
I was going to say maybe I wouldn't hang around with you too much.
No, I really don't.
Yeah.
And
See, when you first said loss, you know, I grabbed for my wallet here.
no, it relates though to people and not possessions.
And so it's mostly about animate things.
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you a question. If I was going, let's say I had to fill in for you, okay?
Mm-hmm.
How do you know when to have the fear?
Well,
I mean, how do you do this?
okay.
Can you do it now?
Yeah.
Okay,
If
well-
someone, well, I can in a way. For instance, if you told me that you were going to be here to meet me for this session, and we were we were close friends, so that it mattered to me, and then you were late, and
It's been known to happen.
yeah, but I might think that you weren't coming at all, and I would begin to get a panic attack.
Oh, well, could, with certain people, be something that goes on a frequent basis.
Right.
You know, there are them that are always late.
know.
But how do you do it? I mean, how do you know? How do you get the panic?
Okay. You mean what feelings do I
Well,
have?
I mean, let's say I had to fill in for you for a day, okay?
Uh-huh.
And right, and so one of my parts of my job would be if somebody was late, I'd have to have the panic for you.
Right.
Okay, what do I do inside my head in order to have the panic?
Okay, you start telling yourself sentences like,
Got to talk to myself.
so-and-so is late. Look, they're not here. That means that they may never come. And
Do I say this in a casual tone of voice? I go,
no, you say no.
you're late
No,
again. Okay, I think I'll panic now.
No, you start out slowly, because you start saying, well, they still have time. You know, it's time. Give them another half an hour, and then, you know, if they're not here by then,
I'll panic.
right.
That gives me a half an hour to change the speed of the internal dialogue. And
But as the time goes on, it begins to build.
well, what do I
and
know
build.
what to talk about? Do you make any pictures in there too?
Oh yes.
What's going on in there?
Pictures of whoever it is that isn't there. Maybe pictures of them.
Pictures of whoever it is that isn't
Well,
there.
of the person that should be coming that hasn't
Okay.
come.
Well, what kind of pictures? Pictures
Pictures of their face.
From the
Pictures
past? Or you make new ones?
Yeah, new ones of just what they look like, or maybe pictures of them in a wreck. Or,
Pictures of them in a wreck.
yeah.
Okay, when you see them in the wreck, from what point of view? Do you see it like from the side, or do you see it like out of their eyes? I mean, what do you do?
No, I see it as if I were standing looking on.
From what? From the side or the front? or-
I guess it's from the side. I really hadn't thought about it. I think it's from the side.
So first I do it. Is it a panoramic thing? Do you have borders on your screen?
No, it's just more like a zoom in, I guess.
A zoom in. So there are no edges on your pictures then?
No.
And then do you actually move closer to it? inside when you make the pictures in your head?
I'm trying to think. Yes, I do.
Well, this is a time test, you know. You do. So you actually zoom in. How close do you get? You get right up to their face then, huh? Do you do that with the rec?
Probably only as close to them as I would be, like if they were injured and I was someone treating them or helping them.
That's pretty close.
Yeah.
Okay, now I can. When you started out, you said you wanted to get some distance from this problem. Can you stop now and remember a time when you last time you had one of these panic things, and remember which pictures you made?
Yeah, I had one last night, and that time I made some pictures of Rex, but actually I just made pictures of the person, probably about as close to me as you are.
Yeah. What'd you say you do for a living?
I'm a nurse.
Oh, you're a nurse. Do you work in emergency wards?
I do some emergency work, but I work in psychiatry. I handle psychiatric emergencies.
Okay. Now it makes more sense to me. I have another question too, which is if you don't see them in a wreck, then where do you get the panic from?
Well, the other thing that I see besides the person who isn't there is I see myself alone and lonely.
From what position?
In that case, I'm looking through my own eyes out at the world.
You're looking through your own eyes out at the world, so you're not seeing yourself then?
Occasionally, I guess I see myself standing there sort of all alone in my house. But other times it's like just the lonely me and more like feelings, sort of looking out at the world.
Looking down, do you see the planet down there?
No, just as you would if you were like standing in your yard or something.
And there was nobody there.
Right.
Okay. Well, let's see here. I tell you what, let's try a little experiment, okay?
Okay.
You like to play?
Sure.
Okay. Now, when you remember what you did last night? Okay. At what point do you begin to feel the panic?
When I think that the person is later than is reasonable.
So
you know, a lot of times I can say, well, I need to cut them some slack and allow some distance. I mean, allow them some time. And then I start thinking, they'll never come, they'll never come.
Oh, that's good. That ought to work.
And then I really get worked up.
Yeah, then if you say they'll never come, then of course you have to make pictures to justify how they wouldn't get there. Like a wreck or something.
Yeah, a wreck, or even just to see them like go into their own home or something like that and not, you know, not keeping their appointment or whatever with me.
And you panic? Okay, now, if you were to have distance, how would you know if you had it?
Well, I believe I wouldn't feel those feelings. I'd have confidence, some self-confidence, and I think I could say to myself, well, you know, just because they're not here now doesn't mean that you've lost them, and it really doesn't matter. Maybe something else happened. And also, you can go on, you know. So what if they don't show up? You can go on.
So, if you were, because, I mean, you know, you've obviously mastered this. By the way, do you know that this is an accomplishment?
You mean to master the panic?
Well, I bet you a lot of people here couldn't panic.
Probably not. Not like I do, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like everything else. It's learned. Don't twiddle your mic cord there. The people back there are going to start yelling at us. The thing is that there's a real difference between my view of people, which is that one of the things about people is that they're such exquisite learners. And I'm always amazed at how people can learn things so quickly. A lot of what they learn is not worth having learned. I mean, think about how many futile things you've learned. But the fact that you can learn all those things is really impressive. For example, can you stop now and remember the same pictures that you were remembering last night and get back the feelings of panic?
Yeah,
Okay.
pretty much.
Okay, now, take the picture and literally zoom in closer.
Okay, I'm going to close my eyes to do this.
All right, you can close your
shut out the light.
If you do, everybody in the room leaves too when you shut your eyes.
Right.
It's the ostrich complex.
That's right.
Boom. Hey, that works, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Now, rest of these people here, they can't do that. With your eyes, you can stop, and by literally zooming in on that picture, it's like a zoom lens, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
As you zoom in on that picture, you get panic.
Right.
Now, go back to the picture real close and try unzooming it. Even further. And further. Even more. And how does that change your experience?
You don't feel as panicky.
Okay, now, let me show you something else. Go back and look at it again from the distance. Now make the picture darker. You know, you ever seen a brightness knob on a television? Turn the brightness down. And what happens?
It creates more distance. Makes it fade away.
Makes it fade away. Now turn the brightness up. Make it brighter. You do this real good. You're fast. And brighter. Now make it closer. What happens now as you make it closer and brighter at the same time?
I'll start getting feelings of tension and anxiety.
It works. Now, the only difference is this time you did it deliberately. See, I have this saying that I tell people, that your brain is an amazing device in the way that it works. The ability that people have to learn is a phenomenal. And the thing about people's brains is they're going to learn on and do things whether or not you're doing it. Because, see, most people don't act with volition. And they kind of act like their brain is not something that they can use. I mean, your hands move whether you think about them or not. And if you stop, say you accidentally sat back and placed your hand somewhere that was a little bit too warm, you would go and pull it away, right? Now, you can even voluntarily take it and put it close. But if it starts to get warm, you have the choice of pulling back. Now, that means you can run your hand. Some people better than others. You know, I have a friend who comes over and breaks my glasses constantly. Not these kind of glasses, but the kind on the table. You pour him a glass of wine and he reaches for it and his hand inevitably knocks it over. He has not learned to run his hand yet. But yet he won't say that he doesn't have the choice of steering it. With people's brains, I always ask them the question, who's driving the bus in there? Because see, if you don't run your brain, see, you know, they get mad at you and they go, let's scare the hell out of her, you know. They even do it in the middle of the night. You're laying there all by yourself, everything's cool, and suddenly Your brain, you know, nothing's happening, so it shows you some scares the shit out of you.
Yeah.
Or you're sitting around and brain goes, well, let's juice things up a little bit. Let's show her some past unpleasant memories and, you know, get something going on. But it doesn't mean anything more that if you're capable of reliving a past unpleasantness, you have a photographic memory. You could use that. See, for example, imagine if you could see pages of books and focus in that closely, you could read them again. You have a whole library there. So what you use to create panic is what I use to remember check stubs and things like that. It's a lot more fun to remember them depending upon whether or not there's money in my checking account. Now, let me have you try something, which is that what I like you to do is going to sound a little bit strange, but then most of the things I ask people to do. When you see yourself being alone, for example, I like you to try is, because we're going to do two things here. What I want you to do is to first, to make a picture of how you think you would be if you were able to change this. See, it's not enough. I'm known as the greedy agent of change. It's not enough to solve problems for me because I don't believe in them. See, what you talk about as a difficulty, I'm amazed at. It works perfectly. You can go back and move right in and have panic. You can take the picture and move it. See, for example, go ahead and make the picture bright and focus in on it. Try. Close your eyes again and move right in. And as you approach very closely to it, you begin to feel the panic. Okay. What I want you to do is to see in the small lower left-hand corner a little tiny dark square that has a picture of you the way you would be if you had made this change. And it's real dark and in the corner, but suddenly the big picture begins to get darker, and the other one begins to expand and become brighter until it fills the whole screen. But you can do it faster than that. There you go. Hurry up. Until you can see yourself the way you would be. Like that? Now, what I want you to do is the exact same thing, and I want you to do it 5 times real fast. Okay? But I don't want you to shrink that big picture down. I want you to do blanks, you know? You got blanks in there? Is your blank black or white, by the way? I'm taking a survey.
Oh, I guess different days it's different.
Yeah.
White today, I guess.
All right. It's good. We're in the South here. Okay, 5 times. So you go, do it once, do it again, do it again. One, two, three. That was 5. Lost count there, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, now, what I'd like you to do is to go back and do it 3 times, only this time I want you to do it real fast. Just whoosh. Don't take any longer than that.
Okay.
It's the amount of time I want you to take. Do it 3 times? Okay. Now, do you like the feeling when you see yourself being confident in the way you would be if you made this change?
Yes,
You like that feeling?
very much.
Oh. Well, now, I want you to do is to go back to the memory of last night and remember the panic. In other words, go back and do the thing that would build the panic. Can you stay in the panic? Now, put the little square in the corner. And this time as the square expands, the other square, the larger one, I want you to have it move backwards as it fades. And I want the other one to come closer as it expands. So to speak, you'll end up face to face with yourself in a new situation. How does that feel as you get there?
It feels a lot better.
Okay, now I want you to do that 3 times very rapidly.
Okay.
So I told you there were 2 things that we had to do.
Yeah,
This
okay.
is number 2. Oh, come on, you can do it faster than that.
I'm finished now.
Oh, okay. Now, once again, I want you to go back and go back to the image from which the panic was. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And as you get closer, this time I want you to turn it so bright it turns white. And then make it dark. And as you make it darker, in the lower left-hand corner, the other image will expand and get brighter as it expands till it fills the full screen. So I told you this wasn't going to be hard. You got pretty good pictures in there. You're a little slow with them, but... See, I like high-speed movies here. Okay, do it again once, but do it faster, all right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, now, you go ahead this time and go back and look at that panic and see if you can hold it. I want you to try it as much as you can in vain.
It's hard. I just keep getting white.
What do you mean? You
I'm
just...
having trouble doing it.
Well, I thought you'd mastered panic.
I am a master at panic.
Well, go ahead.
Right now, all I'm getting is white.
Oh, now, well, go ahead. We'll pick a different time. You must have panicked more than once.
Yeah.
You may
Okay.
have lost your skill.
Well, I can get the panic, but it's not as intense.
Go ahead and
That's
try
right.
and keep the not as intense panic.
It just isn't working, is it?
Uh-oh. You got tricked. You see, it's not so hard to change, is it?
Not really.
Try it once more, just to be
Okay.
sure.
I really just can't do it.
And with utter confidence. You see, if you gotta keep your promise, you said it would change your whole life.
Yeah.
Well, now you have to keep your end of the bargain.
Well, I think if I don't have this problem, that it is going to change because it's going to affect
You got a
everything.
new one. You're not going to be able to do it.
That would be wonderful.
Try it.
Well, I have tried it. I
Try it
can't.
right now.
Yeah, I just can't get it. I just can't get it.
Well, if it was so easy before and it's so hard now, that's an indication. You can go try it in the real world. I tell you what, why don't you go outside by the coffee machine and I'll meet you there in 10 minutes.
Okay.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Fine. Thank you.
It's been some 8 months since Dr. Richard Bandler worked with Susan in a problem that she described as suffering from some anticipatory loss. Susan, we're glad after this period of time to have you back and
Thank you.
give us this opportunity to find out and to follow up just kind of what's happened, what you remember from that day, and what's been your experience since then. And Michael, we have some questions we want to ask her because we've really been anticipating this kind of follow-up that we uniquely are able to offer for people.
I guess what I'd like to start off with, Susan, is as you think back on the time you spent with Dr. Bandler, what for you seemed to be the most helpful, was the most important thing that he did?
I'm trying to remember. It's a little difficult for me in a way to pinpoint anything, but I guess the one thing that I do remember is whiting out the bad picture of me and also blowing up the vision of myself as I want to be. And it's much easier for me now to visualize myself as I would like to be. And that's really about all I remember from the session.
How specifically are you different now? When let's say you get into a situation where someone is maybe 20 minutes late to meet you for a luncheon or for a meeting. How are you different?
It's really good. I don't panic. When someone's late, I'm able to look at the situation, visualize myself as I want to be, and I don't panic. I can think of plenty of good reasons that they might be late, and I'm able to just handle the situation sensibly.
How long did it take for that to start happening?
Well, that's really interesting. When I left the studio that day, I knew that I felt really good, but I was still a little skeptical of what had happened because my panics are so bad and so painful to me. And I went home that evening, and the same situation occurred. Someone was supposed to come, and they didn't show up for several hours. And I didn't get upset at all. I was able to lie down and take a nap. And it didn't upset me at all, and I was just truly amazed.
Now, like Bill mentioned, we're 8 months down the road now from the original time you spent with Richard. How are you still doing? Are you still finding that you don't get as upset as you used to?
I don't get nearly as upset. Sometimes when I'm faced with a real loss, I do get upset, but it's more of an appropriate upsetness. For example, my best friend moved to Texas in November. I shed tears when she left, but I didn't panic. So it was an appropriate type of response to a real loss.
Let me see if I understand something for the purpose of the tape. I believe I hear you saying that two things at least have changed. One is in a situation where someone was supposed to meet you and they may be several hours late, your internal image of yourself is different, and so is your internal image of the situation,
Yes.
so that you do not begin to have those panicky feelings.
Right.
And that change is still holding up, and we're 8 months down the road now.
Right.
Good.
How do you feel about that?
You don't know what a relief it is.
That's very nice to hear. Very pleased to hear that.
You know, one of the things that is amazing, I think, as we watch, 20 minutes or so that Dr. Bandler worked with you, is that many people will be very excited to do this kind of work. But we really want to caution our viewers of the videotape in that to do the kinds of things that Dr. Bandler are doing can be learned, but they should be learned under a supervision of a trainer of neuro-linguistic programming and with people who have the credentials to do that kind of training. We're going to, at the end of the tape, show you some of those different resources that are available in learning NLP, and we certainly, again, want you to look at the manual for some more specifics about the training in neuro-linguistic programming. Michael, do you have a closing thought yourself?
The only caution I would add in closing the tape is when you watch Richard work with Susan, he makes it look so simple. And what he's actually doing is very sophisticated, and I think it's important that people enjoy the tapes, use them as learning tools, but be sure to spend some time with someone who is certified as a trainer in neuro-linguistic programming before they begin experimenting on themselves or other people.
Susan, thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
being with us.